what out, So, which led to me substituting at the high school, you know. I got called about every 4 out of 5 days at least to sub at the high school.
Which is actually kind of funny, because this was at some point in your high school when you were subbing, you ended up subbing for a class that Coach Pixley was in. So that was kind of neat.
I did.
Yeah.
Not realizing at the time how long the relationship would last, or that ultimately he would be, coaching my sons and
like being our role model.
Such a mentor and role model and such a positive influence on my kids, so my boys. So it
was cool.
It's something.
I love Coach Pixley. All right, so you're in Dexter now. You got your face healed up. You met Dad at Hickory Log through your friend. Here I come, and so you have me. And then a few years later, you have Chris. So when we were really little, I know we lived in a few different houses. It's not necessarily relevant to the whole point of the story. We moved to a few different places. Each time we moved, I felt like it got, based on the story, it got a little better. We lived a trailer, and we lived in housing projects, and then we lived in apartments, then we lived in a little house, then we lived in a different house that you were able to get. All the time, you're still kind of just doing regular jobs, and Dad worked at, for Delta Asphalt and different things like that, doing props and things, and propellers, and anyway, so fast forward a little bit, so to move the story along, then you start working mental health, because you have the master's degree. It's not in teaching. Your master's degree is in
social and behavioral science.
So that's where you went in. You went into mental health. And let's talk about, ultimately you've been a crisis person in every county, I think, in southeast Missouri. I'm pretty sure at one time or another you've done crisis in all of them. But let's talk about, how did you end up getting into mental health?
Well, I was subbing and waiting tables and cashiering, because by then, when I was subbing, I was working at a Hickory house, and many times it pays to be a respectful, open person when you're talking to different people, because you never know who you're going to connect with, and sometimes you get ahead or you get offered a different job just because you have a reputation for being a good, respectful, hardworking person, or you're in the right place at the right time, and a lot of times that is what happens. And I had taken a job, it was in Poplar Bluff, it was for ISLs, Independent Supported Living. It's through the Regional Center.
Okay.
And
is that kind of like in Kennett we have Bales, Boot Hill area independent living, so like you're helping people who are in between, like people who can live on their own but they need help, or is it, which Bales is also one of our partners. We partner with JAG, and I want to give them a little shout out as we're going through here, but so anybody interested in nursing or that kind of stuff, check out Bales here in Kennett. But so ISL, is that like that, or is that just more mental health stuff?
No, it is mental illness, but it's also MR. Yeah, it's similar to that.
Oh, mental retardation, is that what the MR is?
Yes, okay. MR.
I didn't, if I offended you for saying that, I didn't mean to. I just didn't, I wanted to make sure I was thinking right.
Because it's through the regional center, but the folks that they think can make it, or they feel can make it in an apartment or a house, they have to have, some of them have to have 24/7 caseworker, supervisor with them, to help them, assist them in living independently.
Okay.
So I was a team leader, supervisor there, not for real long, for about 6 months. And I was supervising a girl whose mom was the executive director at Positive Resources back then. That was the community mental health center for 5 counties. That was for Butler, Reynolds, Carter, Ripley, and Wayne. 5 counties. And so she told her mom about me, and her mom said, tell her to come in, I got a job for her. So that essentially is when I really got into working mental health. That was back in 93. That was in 93.
93, that started this mental health thing, and you did it all the way up until you quit working.
I stayed with mental health. Community mental health. I stayed with that until, oh gosh, I stayed with that 27 years, something like that. And honestly, I've always said that if I was a nurse, I would prefer working in the ER. But I spent a lot of that time, I spent all of that time handling crisis, critical incident debriefings, things like that. Did some individual therapy, was a supervisor for 11 years. No. Yeah, 11 years. I was a supervisor for 11 years. So, you know, it's an experience. It was interesting, and I learned so much from that.
So, I know there's so many stories we could tell, but we probably don't need to get into some of that. But, so you were at Positive Resources was first, right?
Yes.
And then it turned into PRI. No, that is the same thing.
PRI.
Positive Resources, okay. And then
Positive Resources closed.
Okay.
And then Family Counseling Center took over those 5 counties in addition to Dumpling and Pemiscot counties.
So after that one, you went to, was it Kennett after that, or was it another name in there in between?
No, it's Family Counseling, and I came and worked out of the Kennett office.
Now, when you worked out of the Kennett office, you worked at the hospital?
I worked at the hospital on the psych units, adult and adolescent psych units. There was a counselor on each unit, but they were both off at the same time, and I'm not remembering exactly why. I don't remember exactly why, but I helped cover both those units. I thought it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. I do well when I'm learning something new and I'm giving back. So that, you know, that was absolutely a good experience, I thought.
And then after after family counseling at Kennett, then where did you end up going?
I went to work for Boot Hill Counseling.
And that was in?
Boot Hill Counseling is at Sykeston, and that covers Scott, New Madrid, Mississippi, and what's the other one?
Oh gosh, Scott, New Madrid, Mississippi. It's not Cape Girardeau County, is
No.
It's that one south there.
Oh, that's terrible.
Stoddard? No.
No. Oh, yeah, Stoddard.
Yeah, the one we grew up in, yeah.
The one I lived in, yeah, just that one,
yeah.
Sorry. Stoddard,
yeah.
Scott, Mississippi, and New Madrid.
You know, in your 27 years, you covered all of those counties. That's a big area. I know we can't get into some of the stories just because probably not supposed to, but man, there was some crazy stuff. People can't even imagine some of those people you had to talk to, and just the intense stories you had to go out on, you know, just middle of the night, all kinds of stuff. Maybe you could touch on whatever you feel like you can, maybe a couple highlights, I don't know.
Well, when Andrew says that, I don't want anyone thinking that I came home and shared individual stories with my kids. That did not happen.
Right.
But incidents, things like critical incident debriefings, for example, and many of you will remember when Noranda blew up.
Yeah.
Within 2 hours, you know, I was at Noranda after that explosion, and you know, talking to the guys who were directly involved and almost lost their lives in the explosion. And I can tell you it was like a war zone down there.
Right.
Trying to talk, they looked shell-shocked. They were just so, it just, you know, grabbed my heart. And of course, being the professional, and you know, I had training before. I've always been big on behavioral training anyway, so I can say that after talking to them and helping them, and I went down more than once to help with that. Saw many of them at the office, Boot Hill office, and got them hooked up with ongoing counselors.
Right.
Because what I always did was temporary, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all, man. I never meant like, because I don't know any stories that have like any individual things. I just meant like some of the crazy places you had to go. Other people would be like, that other people.
It's already been on the news.
Yeah, and then people were like, oh my God, you know, how does that happen? So you never made it to Colorado. You had me and Chris.
Still no horse.
Still no horse. Done all kinds of mental health stuff. You finished counseling. Was it with Boot Hill when you retired?
I retired from Boot Hill, yes, and then relocated to Kennett.
That's right. Got the job down here with Coach Pixley, and then Coach Pixley ended up going back to Dexter, and then been doing this stuff in Kennett ever since. And then, you know, I've got, you know, it's been one. How is it being able to watch these grands and spending the day with Tazy and Raiden when Tazy was young enough, and now with Raiden? What's that like for you?
I love being around the grands. I'm glad that we're all, you know, both my sons are here in Kennett. Both have done well, you know, for themselves, extremely well, and they like what they're doing. They're both working for Kennett schools. Love being around the grands. I'm so glad that they're down here. I will say that for about a year after I moved down here, I worked at Hayti Hospital on the psych unit. I worked weekends because I was watching the grands during the week, and occasionally I'd fill in during the week, you know, on the unit. Now, they had an adult and geriatric unit over there. Probably would still be doing that to some extent, except they changed the format, and that I believe it's just a day treatment program, so they only need a counselor Monday through Friday. I'm not sure they even have that now. I'm not sure, you know, lost touch. But there you have it. It gives me more time with my grands, and I feel absolutely blessed because both my boys, I wanted for my children what I did not have growing up. Their dad went straight through Dexter schools. Both my boys graduated from Dexter schools. And one of my daughter, she was my very first foster daughter. She graduated from Dexter schools. So, and she's still family. We're all family.
That's right.
That's my daughter, and you know, and so I'm very happy with that. And both of the boys and my daughter had their own set of obstacles to overcome at the time, and they have done so, and they are doing really well, and I'm really proud of them. And I cannot even explain the happiness that my grands bring me, you know.
Yeah.
So
I know you love the grands, man.
Love those grands, yes I do. You know.
All right, so one last question before we wrap up. This thing, I want this to be good for people when they watch it to, you know, help them, like, you know, kids, particularly teenagers. What advice do you have for people that are, you know, teenagers that are fixing, you know, because there's so many people out there, you know, I'm assuming, you know, my JAG kids, some of them are going to watch this, and, you know, other young people as well. What advice you got for young people that are just trying to, you know, maybe take their first steps on their own out in the world and go try to make it for themselves? What do you got for them?
Oh gosh, there's just all kinds of things that you could say, you know, and some of it would sound so cliche, platitudes that people always say. You know, I think what I want to remind everybody about is everyone has their own map of the world, and your map at this time maybe about this big. It may seem like that's all there is, but your map is getting ready to get bigger and broader, and some of the things that happen are just going to be a blip on that map. You're getting ready to meet people, you know, make choices, make your own choices. So it boils down to you can either pick the right road or the wrong road. And I've used this in therapy before, because ultimately it's up to you what you decide you want to do. You choose the right road, you know, and do right, you're going to like the consequences. You're pretty much going to like the consequences. You choose the wrong road, you may not like those consequences, but you'll have no one to answer for that except yourself. You have to own your behavior, you have to own your decisions, and you have to own those consequences. So it sounds like I'm lecturing, and I'm not meaning to. I'm just trying to help a little bit, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can do this. Everybody has their own map of the world, so think about that when you're looking at it. And when you choose that road, set yourself some short-term goals. It doesn't like, oh, I want to be a doctor, and then there's all this hazy part in between.
Right.
Maybe you don't want to be a doctor, you know. Maybe you want to be a good welder.
Right.
Whatever your short-term goal is, long-term goal, ultimately, I want to be this, okay? Set your short-term goals and steps to get there. And I know that you can do it. I know you can. And I hope just maybe a tiny part of this will help somebody out there. You know, what I've shared today, because I appreciate being asked to come on the show and share all this information.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I've really enjoyed it. So I just want to thank you again for coming on the show. I think that people can learn a lot from your story. And like, you know, you think like, you know, and I'll briefly touch on this, like, we don't know, nobody knows how far that they reach. Like, nobody knows. Like people in Kennet, the kids that come through our program and helped, that I've been a part of, whether it's track or JAG or whatever, like, I mean, maybe someone else would have helped them, so I'm not sitting here taking the credit for all those things. But what I'm saying is, like, what if you quit when you were a kid? Look at all the kids now. I mean, I know we've helped people, so I guess that's what I'm saying, who may or may not have had that help had you quit when you were a kid. So, I mean, these people out here, you just don't know. So when you quit, your dreams quit, and you just don't know how many other people you really might be affecting.
I agree. And, you know, I look back, and one of my friends, gosh, this was years ago, in St. Louis, actually, she said, you had the potential to go the other way.
Yeah.
And if you've heard any of this at all, and believe me, this is just touch of the iceberg when it comes to things,
Right.
you know, my life. I had a higher potential to go the other way than to do what I did,
Yeah.
you know, with my life. Not saying I haven't made mistakes along the way, because I sure have.
Sure,
But I'm
everybody has.
human,
Yeah.
you know. But if I can overcome some of the things that happened to me, you know, I'm saying, don't give up. Set your goals. Make up your mind to do it, and don't use other people's behavior as an excuse not to do it.
That's right.
You can overcome whatever it is that's happened. And I have the utmost faith in all of you. You know, you all have that potential. You all have that opportunity.